No, don't do it. She's too strong.
Shit. TikTok bubble blowers, we're just 9 days away from the DLC. 9 freaking days from the DLC. It's releasing soon. I don't have time. What the freak? So continuing my versatile series, I'm going to give you guys one stat spread, one that covers all the setups shown in the video, giving you various elemental options as well as range and AoE on top of OP single target damage, a Swiss Army knife build. I've already made a Dex arcane build that shreds the game, and now it's time to go with fire and lightning and bubbles with strength and faith. So if you enjoyed the video and want more builds like this before launch, slam that like button. So there's going to be 2 specs, a level 150 version and then 200. Here is the 150 first, which is used for all the footage. 59 vigor, 20 mind, 27 endurance to hit the 51 plus poise metric and wear the multi-weapon setups. Poise will let you tank some lighter hits without being interrupted, even in PvE. And then 31 strength. Unfortunately, I couldn't get it to 34 for things like Malekith's sword.
But it's a sacrifice I am willing to make.
15 dex, which becomes 18 with the Okina mask, needed for certain weapons, as well as for Golem's bow for one of the best PvP tools for invaders. And lastly, 60 faith, which becomes 70 with the faith tier, which is near the cap. For the level 200 version, hitting that 80 cap for the faith, but more mind and endurance, and 54 strength for that boosted two-handed bonus. You could take away 10 from faith since you'd hit 80 with the tier, but the DLC is probably going to have new broken tiers that'll probably be better than 10 faith, so go 80 just in case. But if you wanted to use the Godslayer Greatsword, you will want at least 22 dex, but that's up to you.
Let's say you wanted more bonk than the losers at Hogwarts though. Then this spread is the one for you, swapping strength and faith around, increasing your melee damage for non-special weapons and maximizing heavy infusion. An alternative to that is this one for a more overall balanced spread. It all depends on whether you want to maximize the spells or not, since most of the weapons that scale faith only go up to B scaling anyways. But in the DLC, we know there's an incantation that requires 70 faith, so DLC spells might also have more requirements. Just FYI, sweeties.
With those spreads, you get access to all these goodies in this bunker here. Any of these weapons will perform very strong with the setup in either a heavy infusion, which you'll then buff with electrify weapon if they're non-special weapons, or you can also go with the flame art infusion. And FYI, the DLC will have a fire throwing lance Ash of War that also buffs your weapon, so another reason to go for heavy, as that gives you a great ranged option. So first setup is probably the most broken combo in the game, Fire Bubbles. An upgraded version of my Bubbles build from 2 years ago. LOL. It is the Blasphemous Blade gotten from beating Rykard in the Volcano Manor, and the Longhorn gotten from farming the Longhorn enemies in Lendel. Blasphemous Blade's Ash of War is one of the most OP skills in the game for PvE, but it is fire, and the DLC will have fire enemies, like Messmer, and even Moog himself laughs at Blasphemous. So, you use the Longhorn in that case, dealing holy damage bubbles, which shreds bosses, especially the big ones. But both also deal decent stance damage like you see here. Bubbles. Now, Blasphemous has a second thing that makes it so OP, and that every hit you deal with the flame thing or you kill, you gain life back. And for even more life gain, we use the Serpent God Curve Sword, which gives you life per kill, and you get this insane heal back against multiple enemies. And these effects proc even if anything else is killed nearby, even if you're not the one to kill them. So those little skirmishes that go on in open world, you get life back, baby, from their party. And you can take this further with Taker's cameo and Rykard's rune, but nah, I don't use runes because I don't like farming rune arcs, and the build's so strong that you're gonna kill things in one shot most of the time, so those extra heals are overkill. Going into talismans, this is the only setup I can confidently say Ritual Sword Talisman makes sense. You'll be topped off most of the time. Then we have Alexander's Shard for skill damage, since this is an L2 spam build. Fire Scorpion for blasphemous damage. Swap to the Holy Scorpion when you use bubbles.
Although be careful, hot guy, when using scorpion charms, as they lower your negations by 7%. The DLC is supposedly very hard, so your 60 vigor will be useless if you have these charms, with a measly 26% negation with golden vow up. Project just wanted to show the max damage setup. But he's a scrub, so replace Scorpion Charm with the Ritual Shield Talisman or Dragon Crest Shield Talisman, bumping that first hit negation to over 50%, double the negation, making it easier to heal back to full with Blasphemous. If you think you're taking too much damage, always look at your damage negation tarnished.
And then to carry everything, we do need Great Jar Arsenal, which supports this armor here that is used for all the setups, no switching, which is Okina's Mask, the Crucible Axe Armor, or the Tree one, your choice, Godskin Noble Bracelets, and Warrior Greaves, giving you that 52 poise total, or you can add the Bulgos Talisman to reach 69 poise to tank even more attack types. As for the Ash of War on the Serpent Sword, you can put like Thunderbolt or perhaps Bloodhound Step, doesn't really matter, but just make sure that it's out and equipped with you while playing so you can trigger its effect. And lastly, you have double Gravelstone Seals, or one if you're on New Game. These have a passive that boosts Dragon Lightning spells that stack with each other. And for your physic, you want Faith tier and the Fire tier. You swap out the Fire tier for the Holy tier when you use bubbles against fire resistant bosses. Now before other builds, let's talk spells. Golden Vow, 15% all damage buff and 10% damage negation buff. So you're going to be tankier too. Flame grant me strength for all the fire and physical weapons as well as the spells. Howl of Shabriri, purely for the 25% damage buff for your spells against the bigger bosses that you know you can safely kill, but do not use this for normal play as you're going to be taking 30% increased damage, which is going to kill you obviously, especially in the DLC. And then the big boy, Ancient Dragon Lightning. This is a charge spell which when turbo buffed can basically one-shot the largest enemies in the game. This thing is stupid. Even then, it's still the only dragoncult spell I use. If I had to use another, I would say the glaive is nice for AoE clear without having to switch weapons. But otherwise, for the next spells, you're going to want 2x giant seals instead of the dragoncult seals, which is going to boost the damage of this giant's flame take thee, a super strong fireball when charged up, and Surge O Flame, which is your AoE fire option to burn a forest to cinder. And lastly, Catch Flame for a fast close range option, Lightning Bolt, which is used to snipe enemies from afar, and then Electrify Weapon. Now we do know there is supposedly an OP lightning incantation in the DLC that is like a homing lightning projectiles, so that's probably going to get subbed in over a fire spell since every setup has a fire weapon already. Or you can also add heals like Bestial Vitality and other heals, like if you're doing co-op, you are going to want like AoE heals to heal your allies. Now, for buff order, for the melee, you're going to drink your physic first for the bosses, then use Vow, then FGMS, and if you use Electrify Weapon, you want to use it last. For spells, it's the same order, but you just add in Howl of Shabriri at the end. You don't need FGMS for the lightning spells. And just a little additional min-max buff you can add is equipping the Golden Epitaph in your left hand and using it, which is a nice boost for your bubbles. Alright, build 2, the Magma Warrior. Going with dual Magma Blades. These are farmed from the Snakies at the Volcano Manor, and also your choice between Magma Wyrm Curved Greatsword or Marika's Hammer. Marika's Hammer is the final boss weapon, so very late, but it's probably the second best AoE skill in the game, at least for Faith. That has hyper armor, and you can even use it on ledges down onto enemies like a jump attack. It's freaking fun. But a slightly earlier option is the Beastclaw Hammer, gotten from Garank at this location here in Caelid after you give him 8 Death Roots, for equally a good AoE option. And it's actually pretty viable against bosses. But the Worm Sword is also really strong, dealing good stance damage unlike the dual blades. But the blades are very fast, you can spam the L1s, and the skill does a spinning slash but with magma. So a really good tool set overall. The only other change is the talismans, where you want the Rotten Sword insignia to boost the consecutive damage for the magma blades. Now I did mention Godslayer Greatsword earlier and not meeting the dex requirements, right? Well, with Millicent's prosthesis, you can use it alongside the blades and be at medium roll still, so yay, we can still use the Black Flame greatsword for that percent-based damage. And for the physic, you want the Thorn and Crack tier for consecutive damage and the Flame Shroud tier. And for the final setup, I mean, listen guys, we're going strength faith. We have to make a crucible build, especially now that we know we can fly with the Crucible Ash of War from the DLC. So we go with Ordovis Greatsword, whose charge skill does insane stance damage with the Spike Stone Crack tier, capable of chain stance breaking Millennia if you do it right, the Pancake build. And then to lean into the theme a little bit more, we have the Crucible Horn Great Shield, a big chunky shield that tends to deflect enemies' hits when blocked, allowing you for a guard counter, which breaks their stance, and then you switch to your Misericord to deal boosted critical hit damage for those juicy 3000 plus one-shots. Basically the best crit weapon in the game so far due to its weight, but overall this is a super fun build. For the talisman setup, you want Dagger Talisman for more crit damage, Alexander's Shard, Arsenal Jar for the weight, and Godfrey's Icon to boost Ordovis's attack. And for the flask, you want Stone Barb and Spiky Crack tier. Now Godfrey also boosts your charged spell damage, so when you want to OHKO with Ancient Dragon Lightning, you use this setup here. Godfrey's Blocks Talisman for boosted incantation damage, Lightning Scorpion, and lastly either Ritual Sword or Faithful Canvas Talisman, which stacks with Phlox but at a lesser value. And for the fire spells, you simply switch the Lightning Scorpion with the Fire Scorpion, and that's it, easy peasy. And the physics should be Faith boosted tier for 10 Faith, and either the Fire or Lightning tiers, depending on the spells. And from here, you know, whatever's in the bunker that I showed earlier can be tossed in and mixed and matched as you please. All with one armor setup, all with one stat spread. No respecs required. I'm saving you guys larval tiers. Well, aside from the one you'll probably use on this build. But let's say you like twin blades. Well, the Gargoyle twin blades with the Black Flame Ritual Ash of War can devastate enemies caught in it, even the final boss. Or you can go Electrify Armament and enjoy zapping enemies with its amazing two-handed moveset and long range of Phantom Slash. I did mention the DLC Fire Spear Ash of War. Well, if it works like the Spectral Lance, then equip that bad boy to a heavy or fire art infused Knight Rider Glaive and destroy things as well. You can go fist weapons from the new DLC or with Star Fist or Iron Ball with Electrify Armament, and if you need a ranged option, you go with Golem's Bow to pick enemies off, or for PvP to send people flying to their graves. Sky's the limit. Point is, all of this is possible on one spec. And you have enough endurance to use a combination of these weapons without switching, something a ton of these other build videos I've seen lack. So hope you guys enjoy this video of my versatile series, and honestly with all these options, I don't know if I want to do the bleed build or this one for the DLC, but let me know what your guys are taking in the comments and give the video a like on the way down. Really appreciate it. As for what's next, I'm thinking strength int, but what do you guys think? Let me know. Until then, that's it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, subscribe for more Elden Ring epicness. Also, new outro for the DLC that I made with AI. Go!